Are they staged?
Oh yeah, these.
Oh my God. I'm out of options. I'm out of options. I tried it nice, and this is what I get. This. What? Dang it.
There's our intro. I used to don't have to work that much. You're welcome. I'll stand here until we're done.
F it, I'm out. I'm out. I can't even look at that.
Yeah. Right.
Whew, man. Went code black for a minute. Oh, I almost shat myself.
It's not too late.
Whew.
You still can.
About to have a conniption.
Thanks to our sponsor, Durkin Tactical, your AR-15 superstore. You can find out more at durkintactical.com.
Folks, this show is sponsored by 1776 Insurance. We're talking about comprehensive firearms collection coverage. That also includes your accessories as well as knives. If you've got questions or you want to learn more, please visit 1776insurance.com.
Well, hello, fellow miscreants, ne'er-do-wells, and dissidents. I am deep inside a secret bunker underneath Oklahoma with Twitch from Refuge Medical to talk about EDC kits. There are a couple of major differences between what I carry every day and what Twitch carries every day. Aside from the lower back pain, there's also a major deficiency in my kit. Can you figure out what it is, kids? Awkward. There's also a major deficiency in your kit.
Major deficiency.
Oh, no, there isn't.
Well, there could be.
You have two. I was going to say I have a fire starter, and you don't.
Yeah, I got, in fact, I don't usually, I'll be honest about that, I don't usually carry two torches. This is purely because I want to make you look worse. Oh, yeah. See, I don't have one of them. Ooh, man. Hey.
Well, it's not so much for reading as for starting fires.
Got it.
But
got it. Have you ever tried it?
Yes, it's very difficult. You have to, like, the best way to do it, first of all, obviously you need like really good direct sunlight, high noon.
Yep.
Several AUs closer to the sun than.
So not Oklahoma where it's like always raining this time of year.
But in Phoenix, it works pretty well.
I bet it does.
Yep. You got to, like, the best way is if you like kind of jam it in a stick so that you can hold the stick on the ground to keep it really stable, because you got to keep that focal point at exactly the right.
That's the same concept when I was putting my knee on your leg. It's a very focused amount of pressure. It's kind of like a stick.
Significantly less painful than that, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't feel anything.
So using this, there's a lot of art and luck to it, very much like using a bow drill, but that's not important right now.
Okay.
So you've got a lot of medical equipment that you carry on a day-to-day basis. And although I know and have known for some time that I ought to carry medical, I have the ability to put holes in people, but I don't have the ability to plug holes with anything but my belt and shirt.
Well, and you and I were talking yesterday, right, that when I was doing police work, praise the Father, I never had to pull a trigger on somebody. Now, we used weapons in self-defense a lot, had to brandish them a lot to de-escalate things and such. But thankfully, I was never put in a spot where I actually had to have a bullet leave the barrel. However, in my time as a cop, I ran into date a bunch of times. And so if I look purely at that, as a police officer in a city in Virginia, I was more likely than the average citizen was to use force on people statistically, right?
And still didn't.
Yeah, and still didn't.
Lethal.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Still didn't have to use lethal force on somebody else.
And as a civilian,
I used a lot of this.
I've never had to shoot a person.
Right? And at the same time, we talked that you're almost guaranteed to eventually be the first on scene for a car wreck, right?
Yeah.
Well, a large percentage, in fact, about half of the lives saved from Refuge Medical or training that we're aware of are from car wrecks. And that's to indicate to me that it's not just where bullets and knives and stuff are going on. It's much broader than that.
Yeah.
And so to us, we can't focus on, oh, well, when I get my plate carrier on, I'll carry this stuff. Well, but statistically, thankfully, we're not going to be shot at. Most of us won't be shot at in this life. That's a great thing. So we got to broaden our perspective, I think. So for me, I decided some time ago, actually a little bit before I was doing cop work, that I would carry some stuff. Now, it's broadened or changed or shifted and molded to my life since, But overall, most of what I still carry, I carried something similar to as an officer, and I actually used on real people. So for example, I definitely carried tourniquets. It wasn't always Cat Gen 7, so that's an example I'm using, right? So I did carry Cat Gen 7s, but at one time I was carrying soft Gen 1s. I mean, so it's to say that I had something similar because I was devoted that, hey, I feel spiritually driven to render aid. Over here in this pouch, though, is really where the mass amount of stuff is. So this is our pocket kit. You can also see it very similarly in our SOB kit. It's the insert for SOB, right? But I've done my own modifications to it. So this would be like a SWAT tee that comes in a 5-foot length if you open it up and roll it out. I carry this specifically for my kids. They're both pretty petite. You know, you've met them. If they were to be on the road with me, which they typically are, my wife and I travel with our children and we teach classes. Their chances of being in a wreck going 3,000 miles in 1-2 week span is pretty high, I would say. So I carry something like this for them. A standard cat tee ain't gonna work on them. So I decided, you know what, I really love my kids and this is just not that big of a deal for me to carry, and it's worth having an option if they were that injured, right? You don't get redos in life, and a story that I share in class, and I'll give a little snippet of now, that impacted me greatly before I was a cop, was I saw my nephew die. He was 2. And it wasn't from bleeding, but I really wish I had a couple other items on scene at the time because you don't get redos. And, you know, we take that stuff to heart. On top of that, you're talking about standard trauma aid stuff. So the gloves, not a huge thing there. A couple things that I modified, though, beyond the SWAT tee portion. And again, I just rolled it out, cut it in half, re-rolled it like a cigar. Not all kits will come with quick clot. I like having the option, but I used standard compressed gauze more than almost anything else when I was a cop. It's cheap, it's versatile, and it's expendable. So when I was a police officer, and chances are most people watching this are funding it themselves. They're probably not getting a resupply from a company, right? So for me, I rationalized, you know what, I can afford to expend $1, $2, $3 if it's really nice gauze on whoever. I had trouble rationalizing $40 packs of gauze on every person, right? So I had to make that call. A flat emergency trauma bandage. It's small, it's compact, you know, something to create pressure so I can get hands off one injury to go to the next one or the next casualty. Chest seals is a thing that's different for me. So most of these kits will come with 2, a twin pack. I carry double that because in my time, again, my experience as a cop, I was frequently having SEALs fail because a large percentage of the people that were injured, by the time I got to them, they were intoxicated. Well, you bleed faster with alcohol. And as a result, some days I would go through more than one SEAL on the same hole because the first one I just couldn't seem to wipe fast enough. So I like having options. And then, you know, the packaging, which we can talk about during the training stuff, the packaging we know how to use as additional SEALs. So technically, if I had to, man, I could just probably come up with 8 SEALs from those packages. Naso, standard stuff, nothing big there. And then I do have a older, much cheaper, but they're just kind of expendable to me, pair of Shears in here. So over here, I've got a full-blown Raptor set of Shears from Leatherman. They're very heavy duty, but they're also very heavy as compared to that. Yeah. I mean, I don't mind losing these. If these break, if these get destroyed, if I, you know, whatever, I don't care. This is cheap and expendable. That's a very expensive tool that I don't really want to just lose randomly running through the woods or something. So that's where I go with the pouch there. Most of it's pretty standard stuff. Band-Aids, guys, if nothing else, this is for sanity. I don't care what pack of Band-Aids you get, but I got 2 kids, a 5-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son, and every single scraped knee or bumped elbow or random boo-boo I hear about. And usually it has tears and it pulls at your heartstrings as a dad. And so I got tired of that. I said, you know what? These seem to solve everything. I don't know how that magic works, but Band-Aids cure everything with a child.
I have a tummy ache.
Band-Aid that. They're going to love it and they'll forget about the tummy ache. Hey, you probably forgot about what I was doing to your leg when I put a chest seal on you, ripped it off, right?
No.
No? So,
no.
Okay.
That will never go away.
Just checking. Inside the Band-Aid pack, I did decide, all right, I'll keep a couple individual doses of stuff like Benadryl. I've got some Tylenol and ibuprofen, individual packs. But otherwise, Band-Aids, you know, that's groundbreaking medical stuff, right? And then the tourniquets. The main idea of this, we've mentioned before, I really like for self and application to someone else, the Cat Gen 7. We have a lot of hands-on experience and a lot of durability practice with what these can take. In our Responder 3 class, every student puts these through hell. So to the extent that I not only make them push these to the limit, we push them to the limit also. When we do training on our own end or we're doing product testing, it's kind of impressive to me what kind of level of torture these can take, but no, they have limitations. And then the soft tee, I keep a rubber bandage just so it's not flopping around, unfolding in my pocket. But this I carry because it's 6 inches longer. Some people have larger appendages, so I carry both. I prefer the cat if I had the option, but this is a great option.
6 inches is really a big deal.
You know, to me, I guess it is. Maybe it's just a personal thing, but 6 additional inches sounds like a groundbreaking change in behavior.
So I noticed that you, oh, nope, there it is.
Yep, I got my KY jelly.
I was looking for that.
Oh, yeah. It's important, though, because...
And some people will say, you don't need that because if you're ever going to use one, there'll be plenty of blood or mucus around.
Yeah.
But
So here's a good question for you. Have you ever had one of these inserted?
no, I've watched it.
Yeah, I have had
looks
one inserted.
Very uncomfortable. I got a pretty good idea what it would feel like, and I don't want it done to me.
It's awkward. I'll give you that. But
it'd be a
it's
lot
tolerable.
worse without lube.
Oh, yeah, and that's where I was going with that. So if you've ever had one inserted, you'll be really thankful the person lubricates it in some way as compared to dry insertion, which we can all relate to. Right? And then the final thing that I'd like to take note of is the decompression needle. You got to have special letters to be legally able to use that. However, it depends, and that's the thing we talk about in class a lot. If my wife's traveling with me, which she does.
Tension pneumothorax?
It is, which you can get from a car wreck. You can get hit so hard by your own car, the steering wheel, something like that, that's what you end up with. And my wife, honestly, means more to me than the legal risks of that, right? I'm not worried about her suing me. So use common sense, use your own judgment on it. So that's the groundbreaking stuff I carry. It looks like a lot. Comparing to the average Joe, it is a lot. However,
well,
it's not a big deal to carry once you get used to it.
It's actually just one thing.
Yeah, other than these and the BandAids, I guess. Everything else was in that one pouch, and it fits in my thigh pocket, and it's just always there. Cool thing to me, too. You know, you travel with a team. I travel with the team. It's pretty cool when I know ahead of time what my team carries and where.
Just before we were shooting this video, we were talking about the differences between what you carry versus what some of your other instructors carry.
And it is based somewhat on a personal decision. So, for example, my fellow instructor, Phelps, some of the adjustments he made, he carries the same pouch and very similar items. He carries some sort of a rubberized tourniquet. We got a thing called an S-Mark bandage that we get from TACMed. It's very similar in nature. I find them to be a little bit smaller. The material's thinner, so you can actually carry more of them for about the same space. So that's pretty cool. But the big thing for him that he changed was hydration salts, a pack of those. And he's got glucose, so we can cover more bases here, right? And then he's got a CPR face shield. And his, realization was, hey, we're training people really hard. When we do our Responder 3 class, we push people to an extent that it can actually be dangerous. Oh, yeah. Heat injuries are entirely, I would say possible. They're likely.
Any class.
That's right. So we have to make sure we're monitoring our students while, for all intents and purposes, abusing them. We want to push them to a point where they're not entirely sure if they can do it, and that's where growth happens, I think. And so to that extent, we have to have materials to render aid on scene, not just with bleeding control, but also for things like a heat casualty. Because we're trying to prevent it, we let them hydrate, we give them stuff, like Gatorade. However, we want to make sure they're good to go. But there is reasons for waivers. Yep. Definitely. And then on this end, all this stuff's just kind of, additional.
So, if I wanted to carry some life-saving equipment, but I don't wear cargo pants.
Sure.
How would you recommend, what would you recommend that I have, and how would you recommend that I carry it?
So I use a term of 3 main food groups. That's a term I used when I was a cop. The 3 main things that I used as a cop was chest seals, gauze, and a tourniquet. And the 3 of these distributed amongst standard jean pockets, you can put it almost anywhere. So to me, these can go in the back pocket. They're flat. You won't even feel them. The tourniquet can go in whatever other pocket, probably front, and then gauze wherever. It's pretty slim. Those 3 items, and maybe you could add from there based on your pants type, your shorts, whatever you wear. I could fit these items in basketball shorts. So to me, that's the go-to.
What about like belt pouches? Are there any that you like? How would you, if you obviously don't use one?
Yeah, it depends on what you're doing, in my opinion. So when I was a cop, I had a drop leg medical kit that was significant. I mean, it stood out about like this in diameter, and then it was about 2-3 inches deep, right, in thickness. Yeah. So that's not what most people are going to be running around with, much less on your actual belt. Me sitting in this chair, not going to happen, right? However, it depends, because when I go to the range, when we do anything, whether it be tactical training or just going and doing pistol shooting, I like to have the ability to carry stuff in a more comfortable, more accessible way. So the accessibility is where things change then. All this stuff, it's just tossed in my pockets. It comes from wherever. But if I have a higher likelihood of needing it, we know we're flinging bullets, right? We've seen Kentucky Ballistics video,
right,
where he needed a medical kit and he needed it right then, and they didn't have one. And as a result, it's purely by the grace of God and the fact that his father was with him that he's still alive. We talked to him at BDU. And they could easily have had a kit on his belt, on his plate carrier, on his chest rig. Sojourn Gear makes a really awesome fanny pack that I used when we were in Kentucky in the disaster zone there. So I wore it every day on site because first responders, the paid first responders, they just weren't as reliable. It's not their fault, but they were dealing with the tornado disaster too, right? Whole firehouses didn't exist anymore. So you're your own first responder. And as a result, I had this whole fanny pack that instead of me wearing it around my waistline, which you could have comfortably, I actually wore it as a one-strap bag, and then I had tourniquets strapped to the outside of it with rubber bands. They rip off. That's I was telling you about my reloads, right? Yeah. My reloads for those. You can rip it off, no big deal. But it contains a lot, and most of this stuff is actually very lightweight. All the weight in my pockets is on this end.
Yeah.
So if I disregarded some of this, 2 lighters, the flashlight, the full-blown notepad, this stuff is heavy. This is actually pretty light. So to me, a belt pouch, it can be too thick.
Of course, you chose like the most compact possible.
I sure did. I find it really useful for just marking people randomly for injuries. Maybe it's just me.
Yeah, running around stabbing fools.
Running around stabbing fools. And that's something we use in a Responder 3.
Yeah.
Yep. I got tired of having to find one.
I get cut.
You didn't know you got shanked, did you? Yep. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of belt pouches unless I'm at the range and then it's on a duty belt because of how it all sits.
And of course, you can just rubber band this to your belt.
Oh yeah, that's what I used to do. So as a cop, the one I used to use because it would fold better was a Soft Gen 1. They're no longer considered a Committee on TCCC approved tourniquet because the width of the strap is not what it needs to be. So instead of the 1.5 inch width, you're not talking about that. It's more of a 1 inch. However, I've used it on real people and it worked. So that's what I would use. I'd fold it over a whole bunch of ways and you can get this thing folded up pretty tight. Cool. Then I'd take rubber bands, run it through my duty belt, and I had that Soft Gen 1 sitting just on the outside, rubber banded there. And more than once, grab it, rip it off, and go. Yeah. The rubber bands are cheap and expendable, Well,
because when we talk about EDC, we're not going to be talking about what's on the duty belt, what's on the plate carrier, and all that. Right. And, I hesitate to use the phrase because it's become so cringe, but if you want to be a gray man.
Oh boy.
If you don't want to stand out so much.
Do you think I could actually be gray man?
That would be fantastic. Like skin everything like the Tin Man, but like just a gray t-shirt and gray pants.
Yep. I don't think I could do gray man. I think we could do
out.
I don't know.
Like the Las Vegas group, like the Blue Man group, we could be the gray man group.
Oh yeah.
We could bang on flannel pipes or something.
Get flannel daddy's idea. So one thing to note.
Obviously so I don't want a big pouch printing any more than I want my gun printing.
Exactly. Yeah, if you've decided that you're going to conceal carry a gun, it literally makes 0 sense to open carry a tactical pouch. It stands out. I don't get that. If it was something like a phone pouch,
a bedazzled unicorn pouch.
Yeah, that honestly on you, hey, it might work for you, brother. I mean, I'm supporting that. I feel like we have grown as a nation.
As I said it, I realized that I need it.
They probably make them with Molly. Yeah, I bet this exists.
My daughter loves unicorn stuff everywhere. So.
Oh yeah. So one thing I'd like to note is this pouch specifically, with most of the components that I actually had in it, is on Refuge Medical called the Pocket. So again, it's the insert, the slick surface is what I love about this. It fits just right in the cargo pocket. It's pretty standard, nothing major there. The cool thing to me though is it's a reusable pouch. Back in the day when I would be just EDCing in my cop life, I would use a plastic bag. The downside of that was, it did work, but the downside to it was durability. I ended up having to change the bag out a lot. I have put this thing through hell, and it's
clearly
still
been
usable.
used a bit.
Yeah, you can tell the Velcro, it's been worn, still entirely functional, but there's no holes in the pouch, right?
Yeah.
Because the slick material gets it in and out without tearing it, like plastic doesn't do. The plastic bags just ain't made for it. So for me, the pocket is kind of the go-to. You know, do what you can afford. It's a really big deal to have something, and I love that people buy from Refuge Medical. I love that on Refuge Training I get to train people with this stuff, but I genuinely don't care where you get it. I want you to have it. Whether you got it from us, whether you got it from wherever, that's entirely secondary if people are still dying because you didn't carry anything. So that's where my mindset is on it.
Right.
It's a conviction. You know, again, you guys travel everywhere, so do I. People get hurt all the time. It's guaranteed before you leave this earth that you'll bleed eventually. The question is how much. And the question is it going to be you bleeding or someone else? We're guaranteed. At some point before you die, I guarantee you're going to bleed again. That's just the way it is. Yeah. That may be the cause of you dying. But I always look at it from the angle of my kids, they can't do this for themselves. You could. I could. But they don't have the ability to right now. So until they do have the ability to, which is on me to train them, it's on me. Yeah. As their protector.
Literally, it is
literally it's on me. Yep. In fact, funny enough, first thing I used these for, the really nice shears, was my son threw up in his bed to the extent where it would have absolutely made a mess of vomit on his hair, and I cut his shirt off of him. I really did. Yep.
You just wanted an excuse to use them.
Yeah, dang right. I said, I got to cut something with these things. They say they can cut nickels, but my life is just not giving me a reason.
Well, Twitch, thank you.
Yeah, man.
The time that I've been able to spend here has been fantastically illuminating. You people are amazing. I love your attitude and commitment. I want to be like you when I grow up.
I appreciate that.
Thank you to Durkin Tactical for making this series possible.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for watching. I love you.